Hello, Will and Kenny. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Good. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Awesome.
Pretty good. Ready to start the weekend.
I'm right there with you.
Awesome. So today we are going to do something fun. So we're going to talk briefly about aphrodisiacs. And the first part of this, it's not going to be the fun part of the presentation. It'll be the boring part. We talk about the physiological stuff, how it impacts, how foods impact the body and all of that, but we will get to the fun part. The title of this is Temptations and Aphrodisiacs, Foodie Tips for the Bedroom. So what we're going to get out of this, the you are what you eat philosophy, how foods impact the body physically, mentally, and sexually, the healthy approaches and attitudes, what is an aphrodisiac, the actual science behind foods with aphrodisiac effects, long-term aphrodisiacs versus short-term aphrodisiacs, and then some of the foodie list. So you can have both. You can eat for nutrition and you can eat for pleasure. So the rationale behind the phrase, you are what you eat, what you consume does impact how you function physically, emotionally, cognitively, and how you function sexually. And so from the physiological perspective, your brain is connected to your gut. You've got more neurons in the gut than you do in the spinal cord, and then you've got serotonin in the gut, and then all of this, the way that it's tied together, chronic inflammation affects the body and the brain. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So this is the role of inflammation. Short-term inflammation fights infection. So you have to have that. It's very important to have that. But chronic inflammation, it damages your tissues, including your brain and other organs. And it's also associated with depression, cancer, aging, and it's also chronic inflammation is triggered by the body in response to processed foods. So keep that in mind, and we'll talk more about that later. Your diet is also associated with your mood. And this is something that I talk to clients about all the time. Like when I ask a client who comes in to see me and they're talking about depression or anxiety, I will usually ask, when was the last time that you had a vitamin D check, or had your vitamin D levels checked, or had your B12 checked? And that's because your nutrition is associated with your mood. So depression has a strong relationship to low levels of omega-3 fatty acids, and like I said before, vitamin D, high levels of omega fatty 3 fatty acids and vitamin D support positive mood. Depression has a strong relationship to chronic inflammation, and again, processed foods. The studies have shown that foods containing vitamin B can lift the mood. So remember I said that when people come in and they're talking about depression and anxiety, I will ask if they've had a vitamin B level check. And so you're going to find vitamin B in meats, beef, pork, chicken, leafy green vegetables, citrus fruits, nuts, and eggs. And you're going to find your omega-3s in fish, the fatty fishes such as salmon, tuna, herring, mackerel, and those also help to elevate mood. And so this is how diet is associated with sexual functioning. Maintaining adequate levels of sexual hormones such as testosterone and estrogen is critical for libido, and especially as you get older. Good circulation is also a key for sexual performance, and it helps to decrease the bad type of inflammation. Now we're getting to the fun part. What is an aphrodisiac? It's a substance that increases sexual desire, sexual pleasure, or sexual behavior. And they can range from a variety of plants, spices, foods, or synthetic chemicals. And this is a very brief history of aphrodisiacs. So this is, just in a nutshell. These are foods and beverages that have been associated with sex for a very long time, for decades, centuries. You have the ambergris. It's kind of gross. The parts of the intestines of the sperm whale, and they actually have used ambergris to make perfume. There's chocolate, and you've heard about this before, dark chocolate. There are chemicals in chocolate that are used to help you to feel good. So that's why a lot of times chocolate is associated with sex. And then there's ginseng. That's a root plant from China, and that's been used for a very long time for impotence. And you've heard of oysters having an aphrodisiac effect, and that comes from the ancient Roman times. Here's part of the list for some of the foods and drinks for long-term impact. You have the ginseng, you have foods that are high in antioxidants, minerals, and vitamins, and foods that resemble genitalia and red wine. And so these are foods that you would eat, you would consume, or supplements that you would consume like on a weekly basis, okay? Not things that you would consume like right before having sex. These are foods that you would consume shortly before sex that are considered more aphrodisiac because they make you taste good and smell good. Your sweeter fruits, herbal teas, like mint, peppermint leaves, healthy carbs, light foods. You can consume some red wine and then some chocolate, or like chocolate covered strawberries. A lot of people don't think about the fact that when you are having oral sex, sometimes you don't taste very good, and it's because of something that you've consumed. Like if you are eating some of these foods that are high in nutrients like antioxidants, minerals, and vitamins, some of the dark green leafy vegetables, red meats, those are all good for you, and fish and all of that, they're very good for you if you eat those things long term. They're good for your blood flow and all of that. But right before sex, those are not good foods to eat right before sex, because then you're not going to taste very good. The semen is going to taste bitter or salty, and then the female lubricant is also not going to taste very good. So you want to make sure that a couple of hours before you have sex, you're consuming sweet fruits like pineapples, strawberries, any type of berries, or any type of sweet fruits, herbal teas, healthy carbs, things that you're going to consume before you work out. And you're not going to just taste good below the waist. You're going to smell good, because remember, when you have sex, you sweat. And again, you're going to want to consume things that are pre-workout foods. And here's another example, another list of examples. Bananas. Bananas are loaded with potassium, and they have natural sugars in them. Fruit smoothies are really good ideas. Greek yogurt and dried fruit. Homemade protein bars. Chicken with brown rice. So if you're going to need to eat some sort of meat, chicken is a good meat to consume. Sweet potatoes. These are all really, really good foods to consume shortly before sex. So if you think about it, what would you be consuming if you were on your way to the gym? You would consume some of those same things before you have sex. Whole grain toast. You can have a little bit of caffeine. Nuts, oatmeal, cream of wheat, egg whites, definitely a lot of water. And so my philosophy is keep things as clean as possible, just like you would do if you were getting ready to go to the gym. So you're going to want to definitely eat foods for the long term, where you're going to maximize your physical, mental, and sexual functioning. And you're going to want to, eat a number of these things that I mentioned, for the long term. And definitely stay hydrated, okay? So during sex and right before sex, you want to make sure that you're consuming a lot of water, because the body fluids, the vaginal secretions, the secretions, for the male, they're not going to really be there, or they're going to be kind of thick if you're not consuming enough water. Water is a natural lubricant. And so here we are at the list of things to avoid before you have sex. Processed foods. So if you go out and have just fast foods. You can expect to be bloated, have gas, have odor from your pores. That's not very sexy. Okay. If you're going to eat fatty foods, same thing. You're going to have gas, bloating, and odor from your pores. Diet soda, bloating. And diet sodas are also known to cause your serotonin levels to lower. Heavily spiced foods, you're going to have odor from your breath and your pores because you're going to be sweating. Hard liquor and beers, bloating, hard liquor, it's a depressant, and you're going to have odor from your breath and your pores. And then heavy meals, general discomfort and fatigue. And so here are some of the healthy approaches and attitudes. So pay attention to your portion sizes because you don't want to eat a heavy meal, like do the dinner and a movie thing and then expect that sex is going to be good if you've had a heavy meal. You want to eat small portions and try healthier ways of cooking, like grilling, broiling, baking instead of frying, and avoid fast foods. Because with fast foods, you don't know how it's been cooked and you don't know the chemicals that have been put in it. Choose to share meals with healthy and adventurous eaters. Experiment with nutritious foods and interesting preparations. And remember the phrase is eat to live rather than live to eat. And allow eating meals to be one of the many pleasurable experiences in your life. And cooking together as a couple, that can be something that is very intimate. So, are there any slides that I can go back to for either of you?
Back to maybe the brief history of aphrodisiacs.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so along with the word aphrodisiac, have you ever looked into where it comes from? Like from the Greek goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yep.
so like throughout history, a lot of people, they don't put two and two together, right? But she is the goddess of love, and that is where the term comes from, making intimacy more attainable and pleasurable. I just wanted to mention that part because we didn't mention it in the slides before.
Yeah, I need to add that, definitely.
And then I wanted to mention also, too, where you talk about food and drinks for the short term.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
So, in addition to this, it made me think of products and stuff that people also try to use short term to make themselves taste or stuff like that. I don't know if y'all are familiar with. It's called 69 tablets. And it's
Yes.
something that I heard about from the Sexology Institute while I was working there, because it was something that was sold very popular during the blowjob class. But it's something that's essentially made from honey and a lot of different types of fruits and stuff, actually made into a little tablet that you chew, that you're supposed to ingest about a couple hours before having sex. That's supposed to make you taste sweeter. I was curious if either of y'all have tried any of those, if it worked for you. It seems to work for some people.
I have not tried it. Well,
I have not tried it either, but it seems like that's logical. If it's got the sugars, the natural sugars in it, it's made of fruits and honey. It seems like it would be logical to consume something like that a couple of hours before sex.
Yeah. So I think something like that is great for people to try too. But while we're on the topic of aphrodisiacs, I know that they sell a lot of lubricants and other things that are supposed to have arousals in them, and they sell them as like aphrodisiac pills or aphrodisiac lubes. And they have things like horny goat weed and stuff like that in them, and other chemicals. What are y'all thoughts on those and how they tie in? Are they actually aphrodisiacs, or is it, just made up marketing?
I wasn't seeing a lot of the ones that I have listed here. These are the ones that where research has support for aphrodisiac effects. And I saw some of those, but I didn't want to include them in the presentation because I didn't see enough information to include them there. So just the ginseng, the Argin Max, the ginkgo, and then some of these things are the ones that were pretty consistently listed as having aphrodisiac effects.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
So, Will, I don't want to call it junk science, but that was the immediate thing that came to mind, was that there are products that are sold on the market claiming to be aphrodisiacs, but as Erin said, like there's no scientific studies that support that claim. Now, there are things that can enhance pleasure, because some of those things that people may be ingesting or putting on genitalia, if it smells good and tastes good, you can feel more aroused. Not necessarily that your libido is increased. There's arousal, then there's libido. So you could feel more aroused because, ingesting it with your partner or placing those items on your partner or watching your partner place it on themselves. So that increases arousal. But there's not enough research that's been done to actually say that any of that stuff works.
Oh, I definitely agree. I wanted to get y'all's opinions on it too. I get so many people ask questions because people in general are looking for a quick fix. People want something that's going to be the magic, they want a magic trick to make it work all suddenly, instantly aroused, and everyone's immediately in the mood all the time. And unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. So you see all these products come up there, and I have so many people ask me, well, does it really work? And they're like, I heard from so-and-so that it worked. And I feel a lot of this is a self-fulfilled prophecy. People think it's going to work and they really want it to, and then it has a placebo effect for them. But when you look at the hard science, there just isn't a lot of science to back those things up.
And the stuff that Erin presented today, being hydrated, eating foods for the long term, which overall help you feel good, to decrease inflammation, increase mood, makes you feel more desirable and sexy. Like those are the things that work. Like you said, well, there's no absolute quick fix. No quick fix.
It really comes down to living healthier. And
sure.
with you being healthier, you're going to feel better. And especially these things that do have aphrodisiac properties. If you're already feeling good, you're hydrated, your body is going to respond better because your body is working better.
Absolutely.
I agree with that 100%. I usually, when I was teaching the Kama Sutra class, I would remind people that sex is an activity, just like if you're going to the gym, that's an activity. And so you do have to nourish your body properly in order to have pretty good sex. It's cardio. It's, there's some strength training involved in it, flexibility. So you do have to have proper nourishment, the proteins, the right amount of fats and water. You have to have a mixture of all of these things. And so my philosophy is still just keep it clean and simple shortly before sex, a few hours before sex. Just make sure that you're not bogged down with a lot of this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even though it's tempting, to drink a lot of beer, to drink, to stop off and grab burgers and, heavy foods and things like that. Just think about the fact that if you do that, you're going to feel bloated. You're going to have gas. You're not going to smell very good, your pores or your breath, and you're going to be uncomfortable. And so is that a sexy feeling?
I love that you said too that it's an activity, because I think if people would think of it that way more, they would be more forgiving of themselves and their partners for maybe not being able to do certain aspects. But if you think about it, say I'm going to go run a marathon. I can't get up today and go run a marathon. I'm going to die. But you can think about certain sexual activities are going to be harder. There's different intensity levels, like when you're working out, you have your beginner's level. And once your body is more fit, you can move up to doing something intermediate and expert. And if you think about sexual activities as a sport, or as an activity, you kind of puts into perspective that, yeah, you have to be fit to be able to do certain things, or have the stamina, to go multiple times in a row, to have multiple orgasms and that sort of thing. So you need to work out for it, which is also another excuse to just do it more often. Practice makes perfect, right?
Yes. Well, yes.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. It's that sex can be a great workout. And there are even some books, some sex position books that label like the different positions and the different muscles that you're using and how many calories you're burning. So definitely use sex as one of your physical activities.
Yeah, that way next time you go to the doctor and he asks, "Are you working out?" "Yes, I am, every night." I'm getting my hour of cardio in.
Oh, that's fantastic. That was a lot of great information, Erin.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of fun because, like you said, if you're doing it cleanly, eating good things, putting good things in your body, you feel healthy, your mind is clear. And you spoke a lot about depression, but anxiety goes along with, what you're consuming as well.
Mm-hmm.
If we're ingesting a lot of caffeine or lots of processed sugars, then our heart rate is already increased. And then if we are already prone to feeling anxious, then we can have those symptoms exacerbated. And then you can't concentrate on being with your partner because you're thinking about everything else. Just making sure that you take good, healthy care of your body, can be really helpful when you're engaged in sexual contact.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you all's input in this. I'm ready for the next one.
Yay.
This podcast is produced by Erin Alexander, hosted by Kenny Pollitt and Erin Alexander, and mixed and edited by William Lynch.